Hello and welcome to the end of turn 3, or shall we say the beginning of turn 4, because technically we finished everything last time. All we have left to do is click yes and see how much we lose. That's always the fun of clicking end turn in this game, is you know you're going to lose, but how much you're going to lose. So I don't understand why the camera pans this way, but whatever. Hopefully we'll get some view of the action. I was hoping to see a little bit farther north. I wish there was like a kind of a grand zoomed out version where you could get all the way out and see the whole front. At least for the purposes of ending the turn, so you can see where the front is moving. I guess as it narrows, theoretically, if you got past Moscow, the number of tiles does narrow a bit. So if you are at the very end game, you have the ability to fit it all in. It's just when you have the Baltics in play that it's too big to fit on one map. And actually, it kind of matches the historical, because for whatever reason, mainly so people didn't get scared of the invasion, it was actually decreed that you couldn't display maps of the entirety of Russia as part of Operation Barbarossa. So it was only ever shown in 3 pieces. But, I mean, maybe Hitler should have taken a glance, just a small glance at the size of Russia, and thought, maybe I shouldn't invade them. Because that is our biggest weapon here, not our army. Our army is useless. Our biggest weapon is just distance. We got a distance, terrain, and a little bit of, for the Radina, throw some manpower at them. But until we get our factories up and running past the Urals and get some tanks and anti-tank weapons and better artillery, there's not much we can do. This was actually the first turn where I didn't build an infantry division, and I'm kind of regretting it. At the beginning of the game, I had discussed that it would probably be for the best if I didn't do any reassignments of generals. But I was just so tempted. The guy in the north was so bad, and the general that I replaced him with is so good. I was really stuck between a rock and a hard place there, because if I had left him, I was guaranteed that I was going to lose. They're flying recon missions. Sorry to interrupt, but they're flying recon missions. These absolute maniacs. That's ballsy. Anyway, like I was saying, my original plan was not to really try to aggressively reassign generals. It's very expensive for APs, and because of the forced reorganization of your army, unless you memorize what divisions, or rather what units stay in existence, you might be assigning them to a corps that gets rolled up to an army, and then you're going to have to pay to reassign them again. So my original rule was going to be, don't reassign anyone. And I got tempted. I broke my own rule, and what can you do? So this is the remainder of the Minsk pocket. They're just throwing up their hands, throwing up the white flag, saying, all right, it's been a month. We've had enough. So now they're attacking our southern front. It seems like they're focusing mostly on the south here. God damn. Are they even giving me results? Oh, I guess these are just against in place positions. They're not against real divisions. I mean, yeah, they can kill those easy peasy, but they would still have to get across the line. This is where it's going to get scary. These are just very strong Nazi divisions. I'm glad I didn't talk myself out of moving the, or not moving the reinforcement point, because we really are going to need more units in the north. Okay, we held there. Held. Yeah, retreated, but that's okay. Routed. These are the weak units that we knew about. Routed, I hope to God that wasn't... Oh my God. Man, I feel like we got kind of hosed there. Damn. That was the one place I didn't think would fall right there. Thought that was strong enough to hold against that motorized division. Oh, I guess they brought in a different division. They brought in infantry. I should have seen that coming. But I was kind of too lazy to deal with that area. For one thing, it's a lot of border guards and a lot of like weak infantry divisions that at this point I don't care about. You know, if they get smashed down to 0 men, who cares? It's not a huge difference. What I can't tell is if they took Pskov or not. I think they did. I think because there's not red next to it. I think that means they took it. So that means we're going to have to fall back, which, like I said during the turn, I didn't think we could hold it this turn. I thought they had too much strength up there. And now we're starting to see their strength come through at Smolensk. I just hope they can't break through everything. God. It feels like every turn they hit us just a little bit harder than I'm expecting. Even though I know ultimately that they can blast through us, I always envision holding a little bit. But anywhere we fight, we just instantly lose. It's not even that they're fighting super weak divisions, because they're not. It's just they're so strong. And that's what's infuriating about it. And they're also willing to just hit me so many times in a row. I do think that some of it probably has to do with their use of air support, because you see in every fight they've got a little bit of air support. And that can make a huge difference. Held. Wonderful. Held again. Wow. I'm really impressed with the performance right there. I guess we're going to get forced back, but that's okay. At least this turn we're attriting them a little bit. They're not going to be completely full strength. Some of these fights are just going so badly for us. And a lot of that is we are just hamstrung in terms of our generals and our supply. Like all of that stuff, even a month into the war, none of it has recovered. And obviously our generals are just half brain dead, most of them. It can just be so frustrating to watch them have these, what I consider to be relatively good defensive positions, just get completely routed just from getting clicked once. Like these divisions that are getting clicked 3 times, okay, fair enough. You know, you're going to click me 3 times. That's okay. I give up. I'm not expecting them to hold against 3 clicks from a Panzer division. I'm expecting them to hold from 1 click from like a detached infantry brigade, which some of these guys aren't. And it just goes to show you that the real threat is not always the Panzer divisions. Because while the Panzer divisions are strong and they will knock you the hell back, they are not necessarily strong enough to just completely shatter you in one hit. And so we see what our front looks like here. It's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. Definitely collapsed that what was left of that pocket down there to almost nothing. Luckily we made it out with a fair amount of troops. I had kind of written those guys off from the get-go. I didn't really try to get them out. What I wanted them to do was just be a pain in the butt. And I think they achieved that goal. We slowed them down a little bit, and their advance to Kiev is slower than historical so far. I say that, but actually it might not be. They might be right on schedule, which is fine. It's completely fine that they're on schedule there, because we don't have anything to throw in front of the Panzer army. They're just racing for Kiev. And they did cross that river there near Odessa. So that's bad news for us. Probably this starts the big retreat towards the Dnieper. That's where our next big fight is going to be. All right, so let's start the turn off by reading the events, then we'll go over our strategic situation. The Axis Finnish offensive begins. The German 34th Corps attacked Salas sector to cut off Murmansk Railway. The Karelian Army launches the first major offensive in the northern part of the Karelian Isthmus, and the Finnish theater box intensity is now set to medium, and the northern is set to high. So what that means is it's going to suck up some more troops probably. So we can throw some stuff in there. There's a shortage of forces in the Northern Front, which has a negative political cost. So we need to shift some troops up to there. So, and the operations near Murmansk, or in the Murmansk Oblast, eventually actually are called Operation Reindeer, which is a larger part of Operation Silver Fox, it's to me it is one of my new greatest interests of the entire war is Arctic warfare, because it's actually one of the it might be the only modern example of Arctic warfare. You could argue there's the Aleutian Islands war is kind of Arctic warfare, but those are small divisions. It wasn't even a full division on either side. This is like a full mountain division versus the entire Soviet army, so it's much more interesting. The partisans become active. During the summer and fall of 41, Russian partisans will be blowing up 5,000 enemy trains, blasting 607 bridges, damaging 915 warehouses, and damaging over 1,500 enemy tanks and armored personnel carriers. And in War in the East, too, you don't have to worry about controlling partisans, and the Germans don't have to worry about running around dealing with them. So that's a big change. It's all considered like a theater box out of your control, which I kind of like. I don't. Now, a lot of people will say in a lot of these kind of big war video games, there's two types of players. There's either the type of player that is just there for the strategic side and wants to play the war, and then there's other type that wants to see every little thing about the war reenacted. That I consider like reenactors to be the kind of people who enjoy the intelligence side and all those little things. For me, I could care less about partisans. Were they significant to the eventual defeat of the Nazis? Yes. I mean, overall general resistance was important, but was it as important as the Red Army? No. Definitely not. Was it as important as the general logistics struggles that they had outside of partisans? No, definitely not. The Germans in some ways beat themselves by being too successful. And in fact, the partisan effort in some ways contributed to the atrocities that were committed in the rear, because partisans often were used as essentially scapegoats for these big massacres. And, the frustration of the enemy, of the Nazis in the rear, probably contributed to the just ferocity of the massacres. Now, the majority of it, yes, was just racial genocide. But you got to imagine, you're a lieutenant or something in charge of hunting down partisans, and you're completely failing at many points, and you're left with just this rage that's been indoctrinated in you through education and the really good propaganda of Nazi Germany. And of course, you're not going to question orders then that you get from higher, or even just looking the other way for atrocities. So you got to imagine in that kind of scenario, in multiple wars, not just in World War II, but throughout history, wars against humanity have two sides to them. They have the genocider and they have the genocidee, but it's not always passive on the behalf of those who are being killed. They do resist. So it's important to remember the people who were resisting, but also to know that, you can't separate out the atrocities from both sides. That's a really long-winded way of just saying, like, partisans seem important for the Soviets, but there's also partisan groups that end up working for the Nazis, especially in Ukraine in 43 and 44. And they are a struggle for the Soviets as well. Now, Soviets are a little bit more brutal about dealing with them, so if that's possible. On July 12, 1941, the UK and the Soviet Union concluded the Anglo-Soviet Agreement. And what this kicks off, which was very important, was as a show of not necessarily unity, but a show of resistance against the Nazis, which up to this point the British had not been able to do in any meaningful way. One of the very first things they do is start shipping freight along the northern route to Murmansk and then eventually to Archangельsk in the summer. But obviously Archangельsk freezes up in the winter, so the White Sea completely freezes. So they could only go into Murmansk in the winter. But in the summertime, they sent Arctic convoys all the way through the Arctic Ocean and the Barents Sea, and were able to resupply small amounts of the Russians. How significant it was is definitely a matter of some debate, but it was important as a symbolic gesture more than anything, especially for the Brits at that time, who had really not been able to contribute to the war. They had just gotten beaten at every turn. And there was a lot of sympathy in general for the Soviets in the rest of Europe as a result of the invasion and how horrific the invasion was. Man, they really threw a lot at Pskov. So now what we're going to do is just kind of bum around checking out our situation. We know we have got some bad losses. We lost a lot more planes than I was expecting, 533. I wonder how many of those were just killed on the ground, because that seems like a lot. Let's check out the losses screen and go to air losses. And Soviet air losses this turn. We lost 126 planes on the ground. That's way more than I was expecting. And 152 were shot down. And you can see most of our losses were fighter bombers. So our fighter force got decimated. I mean, we were able to shoot down some of their planes too. They lost 50 planes. So that's good. I mean, they've lost almost 600 planes already. We just cracked the 6,000 mark. So 10 times more, but 10-1 losses is actually not sustainable for them. Especially as the war goes on and they're farther and farther from home. So on the ground losses front, we lost 157,000 men still. And now a lot of that was surrenders. But we lost damn near 30,000 men were killed. That's incredible. In a single week. That's like a Gettysburg kind of number for total casualties. So these losses are tremendous. We lost a lot of guns. I mean, we're up to 16,000 guns lost in the war. Last term we lost a gazillion T-26 M1937s, which again, who cares? They're T-26s. They're meant to die. We did lose some KV-1s and even some KV-2s. That's sad because those are good tanks. The BT-2s, I assume there's not too many of them on the field, so that's why we didn't lose a lot. The BT-7s, we lost a good amount of, combined over 100. And then in terms of guns, what did we lose the most of? I'm assuming mortars, but I might be wrong. Yeah, 103 mortars. The M27 infantry gun, it's just kind of a small anti-tank kind of gun. Really used more as a field gun. Same with I would put it in the same category as this 76 millimeter field gun here. I mean, in general, all these field guns, they're used very close to the front line, so you expect to lose a lot of them. What you're hoping not to lose a lot of is your big 152 ML20s, ML10s, M10s, even these M1909s. You don't really want to lose that many. The fact that we lost 300 or just about 300, exactly 300 of these larger weapons, the larger howitzers, is not a good sign. And we also lost a lot of AA and AT guns. But I really think this 76 millimeter F-22 AT gun is kind of useless. From the stats that were displayed on some of these battles we've taken a look at, it doesn't seem to be doing too much. So I think in the future, we're just going to focus on trying to build more of the big hitters, the B4s and stuff like that. We lost 6 B4s, so that's sad. And we did end up losing 32 ML20s. But we're going to use those a lot more heavily going forward. So we're going to lose a lot more. But, I mean, overall, those, unfortunately, are losses that, we can not really sustain. But we're still in the phase of the war where we're just going to get hammered every turn. And we just have to accept that. Now, what can we do? What can we do here? Just trying to look around. So now they've brought up all their infantry. And these guys are probably not getting out. So that is what it is. Interestingly, they did not go to that direction. And they also did not take Vinyesta. They just pushed straight for the Dnieper, really. Which is interesting. I'm surprised that they took this route because they had to fight a lot of battles to get through that. It's very surprising to me that they chose this way. Look how many battles they had to fight. So their losses were heavier than they needed to be just because they fought all these battles. But they ended up just throwing, huge chunks of these divisions at them. I do love looking at these screens. There's just something about the display of the numbers in this game that's absolutely wonderful. It's really, if we're talking sports, my favorite sport to watch nowadays is either Major League Baseball or I love racing, like either NASCAR or Formula One even. And one of the things I love is the numbers. It's just seeing all the different numbers. And war games in particular really are great about numbers because there's just so many things you can look at. So I did read up on what these numbers here actually mean, the FPE and the HPE. FPE means fire. So how many attempts they did at shooting. And then hits is the other column. So if you sort by hits, basically your hits divided by your FPE is kind of your accuracy. And then once you've done a hit, so this guy hit 7 times, this shows you how much damage that did and at what range they were shooting. So this guy shot at 286 meters and did 25 actual destroyed units, 86 damaged, and then 110 were disrupted. So that's what the DIS column is. On our side, our most effective piece of equipment was, what a shock, our mortars, and then our ML-20s, my favorite gun. So our ML-20s, 1 in 6. They don't shoot frequently, but they are deadly accurate. So, 1/6 of their shots land. And when they land, they do pretty good damage. Not as good as a Panzer IV, but pretty good. So the things that are doing anti-tank damage, it's this 45 millimeter M37 gun, which they had 103 of. They only had 12 committed ML-20s. I gotta wonder if maybe I am taking the wrong strategy here. It's great that you don't lose them in battle, but are they really doing that much? Like, these are all of our artillery pieces combined, only destroying four units. That's not really good performance. That's an entire regiment of artillery, only destroying 4 units. But hey, what can you do? So some of these other statistics, this timer here, this is the delay timer. So every time you hold, you build up one of these delay timers. But then when you retreat, it goes away. And what the delay timer is in order to move in that hex, it costs them extra movement points. But it costs them extra movement points to attack again anyways, so it's fine that they're running away. So in this battle, hardly anything was committed because we just immediately ran away. But you can see, really, they're hitting us pretty hard. So this, even though it says it committed these howitzer regiments, they didn't actually participate. So where was his? These are just such fun stats to look at. And this is one of our more successful battles here too. Well, overall, this is kind of what I was expecting in terms of performance, but when they hit you with this many divisions, there's not much you can do, unfortunately, except for retreat, which is what our lads did. Because when they bring in these panzers, they're just so strong. Seems like the Panzer IV LC is their best tank right now across the board. So any one of those we kill is a huge win. Let's see if we actually killed any. I doubt it. Panzer IV-E. We killed 8. Killed 19 so far in the war. That is a drop in the bucket. A very big bucket of tanks. And we have made a very small dent in it. You gotta wonder when things are gonna, stop being so one-sided. I knew what I was getting in for, but God, these losses are just incredible. Absolutely incredible. And just week after week of the biggest losses you can possibly have. All right. So let's kind of zoom out and check out what our most important danger zones are now. So Pskov is still a huge issue, just like last turn. And this area here is becoming a bigger issue. I mean, we had a very weak line here. The interesting thing is that we ended up holding out here, and we can now evacuate this, which is really incredible to me. Seems like our artillery actually fought them off, which is good. Maybe they were just out of movement points because they had to march quite a ways to get up to this. But now that they're here, we gotta retreat farther back. I mean, they actually did really good holding out that first time. Completely even losses against a much superior force. That's really impressive. The things I'm trying to learn right now are like what is working and what is not working. So I'm still struggling to learn what is good. Like how do you know when you did a good job setting up your line? Like if I were trying to assess my last turn's performance, I'd say that I did before I clicked end turn, I thought I did a pretty good job of setting everything up. But then post turn, I'm now questioning, would it have been better to just retreat? Because you see so many of these places where we just get hit incredibly hard and immediately knocked back. I don't understand how you can lose half of your division in one click. Like, what went wrong here? What went so horribly wrong? What is the difference between this and the guys that hold? Like, it's 3.2 to 1 odds, and they rout. I don't understand that. Again, the appearance of the Panzer IV-E. It's not like they brought in air support. There's no air support. So what the hell are these guys running from? Or is it Markov? Is this general a traitor to the Soviet Union? Should he be executed? But that's my guess. We'll report this guy for anti-Soviet behavior. He's got a lot of medals, though. We'll take those away. You know how many medals this guy has on his chest? None. He's got an Iron Cross right there. But stupid Markov has like half a dozen medals on his chest. Clearly he doesn't deserve them because he lost every single bloody battle here. And in horrendous fashion. This is embarrassing. Utterly embarrassing. I was very confident in these troops, and they've completely let me down. What a humiliating defeat, honestly. So now this position here becomes untenable. We can no longer hold that. And the big retreat begins. We got to get back to these forests. Our next line has to be kind of here. Valeki Luki down. God. What a shame. Absolute shame. Well, I gotta give this a think, I think, overnight, and now that I'm starting to understand how dire our situation is here, I'm unsure of what to do. That's never a good feeling. It'll be great if we could get any of these guys out. Hopefully there's nothing across the river here. I fear that there is, but worst case scenario, we cross the river, we knock this guy back. We can probably do that. But that'll mean these guys are not getting out, because these other Romanians will eventually come up and catch us. So I think what that means is that these divisions here are all dead. That's my guess. Okay, so this is the forced reorganization. All these mechanized corps got disbanded. We had some motorcycle regiments get disbanded. Some rifle brigades get disbanded. I assume all of those were under those corps in some way. And then from attrition alone, we actually didn't do too bad. I mean, we did lose a fair amount through attrition, but it could have been worse. So, like, through attrition, we only lost 13,000 compared to through combat, we've lost almost 500,000. So, the logistics report is a difficult to read but important report, because you really want to know what's going where. You can tell a lot of this from the map, but you can tell a lot faster from this. I'm just quickly scrolling through. I'm probably going to go through the rest of that off screen, but I got to give it a think. What I wanted to do this turn with my air wings was rest. I actually didn't want to do anything. If anything, I wanted to pull them back. But what I'm thinking now is that we might need to do just a little something on a little small amount of air action on something in the Pskov area. Problem is they have so much flak already. So 3 there, 0 there, though. So I don't know if that's just bad intel or if they really have 0. And then here we know that they've got an SS division and the 8th Panzer Division, the full 8th Panzer Division, the full 1st Panzer Division. And I wonder if this is one of the split up divisions. We got a full and a third of an infantry division. So in case you're new to NATO symbols, the 3 lines means it's a brigade. 2 X's means it's a division at the top of the counter. So if we look at this guy's counter here, we can see he's a brigade because he's just got 3 lines. And same with this German one. We know he's a brigade because it says 3/21st Infantry Division. That means he's 3rd Brigade, 21st Infantry Division. That's how you read that. And then this would contain the 1st Brigade of 21st Infantry Division. So that means there's a 3rd Brigade somewhere around, because there's 3 brigades that go into an infantry division. That's the standard order of battle. This guy still has nothing. What I want to do is just pull everything back to this line here. And just, we're going to have to abandon some ground because we just can't afford to fight again. And that's fine. That's just going to be how it has to go. And what we'll probably do that's really far from Tillinen. What we'll probably need to do, as painful as it is set up a depot somewhere. I don't know where. I mean, some of these places might be viable for it, but I'm not sure which. So, but next video, what we'll do is we'll go through and do our air war after I do a little thinking about it. I think in general, we need to probably perform some missions. I really didn't want to, but I don't think we have a choice anymore. I think we're being forced into it by the Germans. And strategically, the overall name of the game this turn is retreat. We are going to be repositioning to behind river lines wherever we can, and just pulling back. Our next real line of defense has to be the Dnieper. Although, based on our performance around the Dnieper here, don't know how achievable those objectives are going to be, because, we lost huge swaths of divisions already. Just in this battle alone, we lost almost 8,300 men, and they lost 224. These are the ones that really make me scratch my head. They did have a huge advantage in numbers, so that's probably why it's so horrible. They committed 9 units to the battle, 2 on map, and 7 support units. So they committed a lot of stuff. And if you look at it, it is the extra stuff that they committed that did the damage. What it looks like is they might have committed a Panzer. They did. So the full Panzer division, they attacked us with 2 full Panzer divisions, and we just couldn't do anything. We just got absolutely annihilated. But I don't blame the men for this one. You know, that 42,000 men in the Panzer divisions they were facing, plus all of this artillery coming in, they weren't prepared yet. They were not dug in. They weren't ready for that fight. Next time, we are not going to let that happen again. We'll put it that way. Now, I got to find where the hell my men came in. Did they come in up here? Yeah, they did. So I had one division come in, which I knew I thought we had more coming in. I gotta go double check on where I have that set next time. I thought I had more than one division coming in, but maybe it was mostly support. I think it was. But we'll find out next time. And hopefully we will not get huge losses in planes. We're going to have to be very selective. But we have to do something. We can't just let them walk all over us. So, sad that we lost some of the cities we lost. Losing Pskov hurts. I was really hoping we could hold on to that for an extra turn. It would have been huge. This breakthrough wasn't as bad as I thought it could be. It could get bad, though, because now, once they broke through that stuff, the next line is much weaker. So, it could get bad. And then, in the center, it was a lot worse than I expected. I expected maybe them to hold a little bit. I think in retrospect, the mistake I made here was the design of this was built around, supporting divisions. But what happened was they didn't support them. They didn't come in at all. I blame the generals for that in general, and none of these generals performed well. Maybe it is a combination of bad generalship and a fault on my part for their deployment being too spread out. I think in retrospect, what we should have done is deployed them in this hex here, so where this battle took place, and in one of these other hexes. The other option could have been, actually, I should have done the marsh hex in this forest hex. That would have defended this whole area, and then we could have put an infantry division here and made them fight against entrenched positions. Now we're kind of screwed because we've got nothing behind this except for whatever's in the back here. All these divisions were kind of reorganizing. So we could be in a very bad way here. Yeah, it looks like none of these divisions are quite ready to fight. They're all still getting resupplied and stuff. It's just, these were just such humiliating, crushing defeats. It's absolutely ridiculous that this reserve unit was never even committed to battle. This reserve unit, not committed to battle. So incredibly frustrating. Oh well. That's the way a cookie crumbles sometimes. Next time we'll be just trying to recover. That's going to be this turn. Recovery. All right. Have a good night and see you tomorrow.